if you see a really distinctively like looking dog that you're like, what the hell? Like, who has put this dog together? That's typically a street dog because it usually means that somebody selectively bred dog has stuck out somewhere and then and mated with a dog somewhere. Like, and they've just got this like shepherd head and body, and then like the legs of like a chihuahua. Like,
Doesn't match.
if I'm working with a client and they're feeling quite trapped, say they've got they've got their rescue and their world is feeling very, very small and they're feeling very trapped, I'm like, hey, the first thing that we're going to try and do is try and expand your support network because like I want you to be able to feel like you can go to the cinema or you can go out for a
Mhm.
meal, and that you feel that your dog can be safely left with someone, like whether it's a family, friend, another professional. Like, let's try and expand that support network so that you don't feel so alone because it's very, very isolating. You need to say to yourself, am I someone that if for whatever reason my dog can't do X, Y, Z, am I going to be able to cancel those plans that I maybe had a
Mhm.
few months from now that maybe I thought would be fine, but actually they're not going to be fine now? Like, am I flexible enough to not be upset by that and not blame my dog for that?
I'm Olivia.
I'm Laura, and this is Ruffly Speaking, a podcast driven by honest, curious conversations about life with dogs.
Each episode, we explore one story or idea that helps us see our relationships with dogs a little differently.
It's not about perfect training or quick fixes. It's about the real, sometimes messy, always evolving nature of sharing life with dogs.
Oh my
All right,
goodness.
guys, we just had an awesome conversation with Toby from Craze Dog Training. And you guys, this was a very fun conversation. We've been looking forward for this chat for a while, almost since we started the podcast, but we
Yeah.
wanted to just like warm up before and just getting in the vibes of what it was to have guests in our podcast. But finally, here it is. And I think like everyone is going to really enjoy this conversation because we Craze Toby is we were just talking about his name. Toby specializes in working with rescue dogs and helping people who bring dogs from overseas to help them adapt into the new life and just helping in like he has a ton of experience in rescue work, working with like free roaming dogs in Thailand and elephants too. So like that was a little extra nugget in there. So yeah, like this conversation goes very deep into what it takes working with dogs, working with rescue dogs, and how we can really help them adapt, things we need to consider when either we want to help street dogs or rescue dogs just have better lives. So I feel like this was a very like nuance, and it's never easy. There's not like a cookie cutter answer, but I think like that's why we wanted to have this conversation with Toby and just feed off all of his knowledge and all of his experience, and also bring that in because like Olivia and I, we're both working also with rescue dogs in here in Canada. So it was, at least I learned so much.
And I think, like, for people who don't know, we do curate our guest list very particularly. Like, we don't really
We are
bring,
picky.
yeah, we don't bring anybody onto the podcast. We really want to make sure that, you know, philosophically, in terms of like values and everything, we do align with this person, and making sure that whoever we bring on is also putting out like positive vibes and, you know, making sure that we're doing the best for our dogs in just a really loving, caring, empathetic way. And I think you can really see that with Toby and the way he describes working with dogs. Like, you could just see empathy just like radiating from him, even though he's like, he has a very straight approach to how he likes to handle things and work with rescue dogs and how he manages his business and all that, because we did touch on a little bit of business stuff. But you can tell that it really just comes from a place of empathy and understanding where the humans are, where the dogs are at. And I think that's kind of what me and Laura really gravitate towards, is like people who have that same mindset and are doing that kind of work with dogs. So I think this was like an amazing last guest episode for our season, to really hit it off. And yeah, I'm so excited for who we're going to bring on for season 2 now, because we can, you know, really, I don't know, explore all the different types of trainers and maybe bring some people back from
The
season
world
1.
is our oyster.
Yeah. So this was just, and like Toby's our first Well, actually, no, Bianca was our first international guest.
Mhm.
So we're slowly kind of like branching out and going a little bit more global.
We're going global, guys. And yeah, I think like in the beginning, we wanted to test out with like, like people we knew, like more local. And I mean, not to say that that was like less important, because we've been like every single person that we've brought into the podcast, I feel like has taught us so much, and just
So much.
expanding our ideas and the way that we see what we do with dogs, and how we relate with them, even like from like weekly babies and like Oldie Be Good, who do like product based, like we learn so much from them, and then now touching more into this dog training side at the end of our season, and then little by little expanding to other people and other trainers, other countries. And yeah, like Toby's from UK, so it's like our farthest guest so far, but hopefully next season we can go like and just connect with people from all over the world, because I feel like that is the biggest like learning that I've had, that like really everyone, and like the farther away they are, like the more varied their experience are, is like
Mhm.
it makes for like so much more of a rich conversation, because you do have to be like, I always have this line that you have to be the dumbest person in a room, and I
Mhm.
always try to like just find ways to feel dumb and to like just like be in a context where I can learn so much from someone. So I think like definitely that's something that this podcast has allowed us to do. And
totally.
yeah, I think like this is just a little reflection, knowing that this will be our last guest episode this season, and we're just feeling a little bit reflective and
I
a
know.
little bit emotional.
No, I love what you said about that, because it's so true, especially with like having done Bianca for our last episode, for our last guest episode, and then Toby for this one, like being, especially, well, specifically from like a behavior context in
Mhm.
terms of dog training, like being able to see different like mindsets in terms of like culturally, like their own experiences, what they've done, and like coming together and kind of like merging all of our ideas and thoughts. I think it does really make for like a rich conversation, because like typically you can, like, if we talk to more trainers from our local area, it kind of starts to feel like we're in a vacuum. And that's not to say
Mhm.
that like we're not open-minded or whatever, but it's just like we live in our own little local bubble, and like we all have the same environment and we kind of have the same community. But when we start to reach out from
Mhm.
people from different places with different experiences, we can kind of shift how we see certain things, and even help ourselves in terms of our own training and helping other people with their dogs. So I think it's going to be really awesome to be able to grab more people from all around the world.
Yeah, we have a big vision, guys. We're excited, but yeah, I think like definitely this is gonna be a conversation that whether you like, if you have a rescue dog yourself, you're gonna really, 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 really enjoy that. But as at some point in the conversation we realize these things apply just like with the episode with sports, dog sports. It's the same. Like the concepts apply to anyone with a dog, whether that is a rescue dog or a dog that like you got when they were 8 weeks old and you brought home and you raised from like puppyhood. Like these challenges still happen to anyone, and to like, yeah, like just like Olivia with Darwin, is like Darwin is not a rescue dog, but she was showing like to the T exactly all the behaviors that Toby was describing. So I think like this is a really nice conversation just to expand really like the perception that dogs have in a circumstance, because sometimes we can get trapped in our own human perception and how we see things. And I think it's important to always consider how those things are hitting the brain of our dogs and how their perception is taking everything in. And I think like that is the biggest takeaway from this, that we always have to consider that, and knowing that whatever we think or feel or see or sense, it may not be the same as our dogs, and just holding that space for them to like also acknowledge that, and give them a chance to be in their own perspective and grow in there together. So I think the more we can start listening there, the more growth we can have with our dogs. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and yeah, we still have 2 more episodes after this one that Olivia and I will do like solo episodes. So like, don't worry, guys, we still have some content there. But yeah, like it's crazy to think that we are reaching the end to our first season.
I know. I'm getting kind of sad. I'm like, it's exhausting. We need a break, but also I'm getting kind of
But I miss
sentimental.
it.
I know. Well, especially because I feel like now we're like, we we've really gotten into a flow. Like I feel like I
Mhm.
mean, when you start out anything new, you're like you going through all these like bumps and like things you have to figure out, and it's kind of awkward in places. But I feel like now we've really gotten into like this flow of how we do our interviews and how we set things up and just how we go about producing the whole thing. So it's going to be sad when we have our little break, but we're going to be so refreshed
Oh.
for like season 2. So it'll be good.
Like power.
Yeah.
And I feel like also the learning from each other, because I've been like learning just like so much of like how we communicate, like how we
Yeah.
develop our own like way of flowing. So, oh, this has been a nice experience. And don't worry, guys, we still have like a lot of plans. Like we have so much content from just this season. So we're planning to have like, you know, like still put things out and just break, because I think every single episode we've done, we have so many nuggets that it's hard to keep up to actually sharing everything, just with like life and everything else going on. But those things will come. So yeah, for now, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Toby from Craze Dog Training in UK. You guys, welcome to another episode of Roughly Speaking, and this one is very special. We were just telling our honor guest here, Toby from Craze Dog Training, that I mean, like, I just want to do like a little like wrap up of the fact that he is going to be our last guest of this season, and we cannot believe we are almost at the end of our first season. Like this started like just very, I don't know, like very randomly, very like, let's do a podcast. And like now we have Toby, which is one of the trainers. I think like when Olivia and I were figuring out which people we wanted to talk about in like on our web and on our podcast, you were one of the first ones that we both pitched in of
Totally.
like, what about him? Because you have such an interesting background, Toby, of like working with rescue dogs who come overseas, and all the struggles that they go through adapting to a new world, a new life. And then the more we started following you, you have a huge background of like working in Thailand and then having that inside experience of working with dogs there, like free roaming dogs. So we are gonna really try to chill, like just letting our audience know we're gonna try to chill with our questions, but we may have many. So just being here with us, because I feel like Toby has a wealth of knowledge that he can pass along. So I feel like it's gonna be worth it if it's long. So welcome, Toby. Thank you for being with us, for spending your Sunday with us. And then if you wanna just start by just give us a little bit of a background of what Toby is today. I know that you have your dog training company, Craze Dog Training. So if you can just let us know what's your present looking like before we dive into your past.
Cool. Yeah, no, honestly, thank you so much, guys. I love everything that you guys do. So yeah, honestly, I am honored to be on here and as the final guest as well. Well, yeah, no pressure. uh, but, but yeah, so at the moment, so I run Craze Dog Training. I usually do online training is my main form of training. So I have clients worldwide. I do in-persons as well, but I do mostly online because of the nature of the dogs that I work with, which I'm sure we'll get into loads in this podcast. But yeah, at the moment it's online training, in-person training. I do want to branch out into the future, maybe start running some courses and kind of like easier, like cost-effective things for maybe like potential adopters and stuff like that. That's all projects in the pipeline. But for now, I am pretty busy with online clients mostly and a sprinkle of in-person clients as well. So yeah, my specialty is street dogs, free roaming dogs, foreign rescue dogs, dogs that live in shelters, generally dogs that come from overseas. Yeah, that's my background and my specialty. Yeah.
Ah, that is so cool. Like, I just like love that. And I mean, I have so many questions now that you mentioned that about online training and what you do. I reached out a few months ago asking you about that because I broke my ankle and I was trying to survive that phase of my life. But I think like we're gonna keep it to the doggies this time. Maybe one day we'll have a conversation of like just dog trainers in business and how we each approach how we work with clients, because I feel like that is like everyone can have such a different approach to that. But I do acknowledge how you've been mentioning a lot and like on the content that you create of how online training has been so helpful for you with the particular crew of doggies that you have, because of course they struggle a bit more having, you know, like men and strangers. So like first I want to just ask that question. How have you found like as a man, because I feel like for Olivia and I, we see a lot that like dogs really tend to open up a little bit faster with women. So, and I know like men in general, like in an experience with dogs, they tend to be the ones, like causing a bit more trouble for dogs out in
Yeah.
the world. So how have you dealt with that? Like
Not to
other than
stereotype, but
it's a
just a
fair
little average.
stereotype. Yeah, no, it's a fair stereotype. To be honest, I was like when I was in rescue, when I was working like full time in rescue, is where I first noticed it because all the dogs that I was working with in rescue were all ex-street dogs. So I kind of like had that kind of going against me from the start. But because of the kind of like nature of the industry that I was in when I was in working with rescue dogs, a lot of these dogs had never really trusted anybody before, so it almost didn't really make too much of a difference between like the
Mhm.
men and women on the team. I would say that when there were some particular cases that would come in, or like traumatized dogs or dogs that had bad experiences with men, which we knew about, it would take a bit of planning throughout the team to get the female members of the team kind of get in there first, build the relationship, and then they would be like a catalyst for the building the relationship with the
Mm.
guys on the team, like including me. But what I found was actually like the dogs who are more wary of men, when they do trust a man for like the first time, and that bond is incredibly strong and it runs incredibly deep. And there were plenty of dogs that on surface level took me a bit longer to become friends with and a bit longer for them to trust me. But then after that, we had like these impeccable relationships where like it was just so trusting, could do so much crazy stuff that wouldn't be able to do like on the surface level. So when I was in rescue, it didn't always kind of like matter too much. But I would say like as I transitioned into doing private clients is when I realized like, oh yeah, like I can't just go treat everybody else's dogs like I did the rescue dogs. I kind of take a bit of a back step, which is why I went into the more online aspect of it because I didn't want to waste people's money because it could take like 4 or 5 visits maybe for me even get inside the house, like turning up to a ex street dog's home. So it was just wasn't really cost effective for the people. Whereas I could just help them online, and then the dogs could be natural with the people that they already trust, and I could coach the people who could then train their dogs, and it just works so much better. So yeah, like in the rescue world, because of this, the kind of the environment that you're in, and just the situations that the dogs are in, I do feel that they build bonds with guys kind of like in that place quite well, especially because all the people working in the rescue industry as men. We're all pretty like educated on how to behave around dogs, be very hands off, play hard to get, let the dogs come to us, and because we kind of have that energy about us, it does make it easier. But I will say there were some cases where it's like I'm gonna let the girls go in first, build the relationships, and then I'll just like hang along on the side like a straggler, just waiting for the dogs to like become inquisitive
Mhm.
of me.
And then can you give us some context of how you got into rescue work? Like what was that first initial step? And then how did it lead you to Thailand of all places?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I actually started in Thailand when I finished uni. So I did animal conservation science and behavior in university, and I finished university,
Mm.
and I was very lucky to get a job in Thailand, but not with dogs, with elephants. So it's with rescued elephants rather than rescued
Mm.
dogs. And these were elephants that used to be in the tourism trade, circuses, camps, and stuff like that. And they were relocated back to their natural homes, like in the rural villages, northern mountains of Chiang Mai. And what my job was to take volunteers out to observe these elephants in a natural habitat, collect behavioral data, all completely hands off, like no touching, no bathing, no riding, nothing like that, just
Mm.
literally trekking through the forest. And it was awesome. And that was the first time that I come into contact with village dogs, not like in a rescue sense or anything. These dogs were, technically like owned. They had collars, but and people knew what houses they belonged to. But they were free roaming all day, like everywhere. But I'd say they had a really good kind of like coexistence with the people in the village and stuff like that. So it was still like a little bit different to say like the standard street dog. That was my first experience with them. Like I knew they were a bit different from the dogs I was used to at home, but they were still kind of, they had like a family aspect. So that was pretty cool. COVID hit, came back to the UK, and I was just like, looking for jobs. And I wanted to obviously do something with animals. I'd finished uni, luckily went straight into an animal career. So I was like, I don't want to divert from that at all now. Like, got my
Mhm.
foot in the door. And there was an adoptions coordinator post for a rescue a few hours from where I lived. So I applied for that and I got it because I thought, hey, I'd studied animal behavior. I've lived with
Mhm.
dogs all my life. So yeah, why not? And I like speaking to people and stuff. So yeah, absolutely, let's go for it. So I went for it. I got it. Um, I joined, and I was like, wow, okay, shelter dogs, especially shelter dogs, but all dogs that have come from other places. I was like, I need to relearn everything that I thought I knew about dogs. I was like, wow, yeah, I really don't know anything. So, um, and as I was doing adoptions, I was like, okay, like a lot of these dogs are not probably going to get adopted unless I actually help them to get adopted. So I just
Mhm.
started studying in my own time, podcasts, books, courses, all that kind of stuff. But because I was working in person with dogs in the rescue, I could study things the night before or even on my drive to work, and then I could just go and apply it to the dogs and test it out in a
Isn't that the
practical sense.
best? The
Yeah.
best way to
Yeah.
learn, like just like learn and apply immediately.
Yeah, it was awesome. And because of that, like I definitely racked up my 10,000 hours, like I was just like all day, every day, multiple dogs. And then I was like, oh, this is really fun. Like because I learned so much about positive reinforcement training, which I already had a background anyway from like the theory that I did in university. But I was just loving it. I was just like seeing how these dogs would change and like you see that progress, you just get hooked on the process. You're just like, wow, this is incredible. And because of that, naturally, as I was doing adoptions, it was easy for me to then explain that to new people and people who hadn't maybe like had a dog before and things like that. Coach them, and then I would also do the post-adoption support as well because I knew the dogs extremely well, and it just kind of like snowballed like that. And I was just like, wow, I really like this. I started teaching the team more stuff. I started doing more and more dogs, like various different parts of experience. And then I just got to a point where I was like, I want to help more dogs, and also I don't want to boss anymore. I was so naturally it was just like I'm just gonna go off and do my own thing. And because I'd been
Mhm.
in rescue as well, and I decided like my Instagram page, and I could like it was just content of the dogs in the rescue all day, every day. So I kind of like built up a little something anyway. So just it was like a nice natural progression for me. And it didn't really feel like I was doing anything different other than just working with dogs that I didn't know as opposed to dogs I already had a relationship with.
Mhm.
And
Ugh.
sorry, before we get in more into the rescue work, because I know you have your own dog, I
Yeah,
just want
yeah.
to touch on that before we get in. Is your dog a rescue? How did you guys come together, connect? What does that look like for you right now with your own dog, and what's their name?
Yeah. So we have Nova. So me and my partner, we have Nova. So Nova was adopted by my partner like 2022, like before we met, and
Okay.
then um we actually met in rescue. So like we actually met in rescue, and that's how
Rescue
I met.
love.
Yeah, exactly. And then I met Nova, and then me and Nova instantly gelled, and she's a rescue from Ukraine, kind of like
Mm.
around the time like the war started. So um, she would come over 2022, and now she lives with us here. And yeah, she's fantastic. Like we have a brilliant relationship. She has a street dog as well, so she's got all her street dog quirks. She's pretty unique
Mhm.
in that she is able to do a lot of things I'd say like a lot of street dogs can't. So we were recently on the radio, which was an incredible experience, and we
Wow.
were we were able to bring Nova to the studio, and Nova did extremely well. So
Nice.
that
I
was really
saw the
really cool.
videos. So
Yeah,
cute.
Yeah.
like it was awesome. It was awesome. It was so so good. So yeah, we have Nova, and she is a gem. And actually, it's like sometimes I do use her for some of my other street dog clients if I
Hmm.
do have in persons because she's very good at kind of like bringing dogs out of their shell. She loves other streeties, so she does like homing missile. Like she knows a streetie from like other dogs. Like other dogs, she'll kind of like she'll be like, nah. You're not for me. She'll just like just cruise on past them, or she
Yeah.
doesn't like the excitable like UK dogs, like like
Your
Labradors and stuff.
doodles.
Yeah, actually, she loves a doodle. I find this with street
Look at
dog.
that.
I've got like no kind of scientific evidence for this, but most street dogs that I know just love doodles. I don't know what it is, but hey,
Interesting.
yeah, it's really
That
cool.
is so
So
interesting.
funny.
I'm gonna start analyzing that with like our
I
doggies and
know.
like
Yeah, I don't know. I could have a small sample size, but yeah, from what I've experienced, um, but yeah, but like when she sees another streetie, she's like, wow, yeah, like that's like they hit it off straight away, and it's really nice to see. So I mean, like just this Tuesday coming, I've got a session with a really nervous Romanian rescue that hasn't been out of the house I think in the last year. So Nova is going to come with me to see if we can help that dog and kind of like start falling in love with coming outside or meeting up with other dogs again. So yeah, she's awesome. She's absolutely fantastic. Love her. And then I do have a family dog as well. He's not a rescue. He just came from a
is that
farm.
George?
Yes, George. Yeah. He's my family dog.
Because I was like, where's
Um,
George?
Yeah, don't worry. George is a superstar. Like everybody loves George because he's just got like such a striking look. Like I have no
He
idea what he
does.
is. He's just like he's like a spaniel head with like a Dachshund body and just yeah,
Yeah.
he's like full of beans. Like I absolutely love him. He's 7 this year and you wouldn't even think it. He's crazy. Like I absolutely love him. He's definitely like, really a highlight of my life. We're out with them
Oh.
today. Nova and George get along well, which is good because George um where my parents live, they live quite rural. George has never really had to encounter like urban situations. He doesn't do well in urban situations because he's never really done them. He's always had like free roaming time on the moors. He's great with other animals, livestock, all sorts of things. Like he just loves his people, not super sociable. He gets quite nervous around other dogs. But because Nova is so good with her communication, George feels much more comfortable with her than he has with any other dog. So, they can share a space inside. They go for walks together. They coexist very, very nicely. So that's a really nice thing for me because I've never really seen that from George. Like, he'll tolerate other dogs and he'll get like a bit upset and withdrawn and maybe like hide behind me. So it's nice to see like him and Nova getting along so well. So yeah, but George is a superstar. George is definitely a superstar on my Instagram. Nova gets more of the spotlight now because we moved out of my parents' house, but George still pops up occasionally.
It's good for me to know because I was also wondering because like I saw that you moved and then all of a sudden I wasn't seeing George and it's like where's
I know,
George?
I know. I try and take whenever I go to see them. Like, so we were out walking with them today. I try and capture as many photos and videos of George as I can so I can just post them
We need
because
that.
like everybody
Just
loves
like
George.
content batch George.
Yeah, everybody loves him. It's just 'cause he's just so funny looking. Like no one can just like put their finger on it, and he's just like, and he's just
Yeah.
crazy as well. Like everyone loves the videos of him just like zooming around. Like it's so good.
So good.
Yeah, we're waiting for the George content. Although, like, I do appreciate the Nova content and seeing her being a superstar in the radio. So I love that. But just like going back into the like after like the little George and Nova detour because that was necessary. So going back into the rescue world because I know that you mentioned you were working at a rescue. Is that like when you started like Craze Dog Training and then you went back to Thailand? Because I remember it was like a year ago or something that you went back for a few months.
Yeah. So I was in rescue in the UK in a shelter that specialized in dogs from abroad, particularly Romania. I started Craze Dog Training whilst I was in there, like basically started my Instagram page, and then I left there and went self-employed. And then from there, Lauren actually was the one who got the job in Thailand to start off with because Lauren's also a dog trainer. So it's like a household of dog trainers here. So like, she's a dog trainer. She got the job in Thailand originally, and then I was just like, okay, well, I work mostly online, and I absolutely love Thailand. It's my favorite place on earth. So hey, yeah, let's do it. So we did. And then we stayed there for 8.5 months. And it started off with like Liz Lauren working there. And then they were like, hey, do you want to come in like part-time and do behavior consultancy work for us? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm missing my dogs. So like I wanted to get hands-on with the rescue dogs. Hadn't really worked with Thai rescues before. So I was like, yeah, this is a great experience for me. And yeah, just fell in love with them as well. So then we were in Thailand for 8.5 months. Then we came back. I think it was the end of July last year is when we came back from there. But yeah, so that was like the Thailand stint. So now I was doing like a mix of both. I was like in the rescue a few days a week, doing my own stuff the rest of the time. But yeah, that was awesome as well because it was just a completely different setting. Obviously, like being in the UK rescue is one thing. Being in Thailand where it's like 30 to 35 degrees, humid all the time. Way different environment, just a completely different setup. But yeah, that was awesome as well. Like it was so good, and the team there are just absolutely incredible because I got to see more of the like first-hand rescue side because it's like the only rescue on that island on Koh Lanta, so Lanta Animal Welfare, and they are the go-to call for like dogs are injured, dogs have been injured by other people and all the surrounding areas, the mobile clinic, sterilization, education programs. It was really cool to like see that firsthand and be like the first kind of stage of when these dogs come in, as opposed to when I was in like UK rescue, the dogs had gone through all of that, say in like Romania, then they were transported to the UK where we would do further assessment, further medical care, and the adoption side of it. Here was very much like, okay, it's the first stage of like the rescue. The dog's coming in with horrendous injuries, life-threatening stuff like emergency surgeries, that quarantine period, recovery period, and then going into the actual behavior stuff that is a result of that. So yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like it was a big inspiration for me because like I don't know if like you listen, like we did our episode about my observations now that I came back, because I'm from Mexico, so like I grew up living in like just like normalizing, like street dogs were everywhere and it's just like part of the day to day. But I feel like when I was there, I wasn't at all in like anything with dogs. I was in college studying like business and things like that. So I think like my relationship, even though I helped one time, I saved like a little puppy that came to me and she had, I always forget the name of this, like the skin disease, mensch,
Oh, like mange, yeah.
Mange, yeah.
Mange.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Like it's in Spanish is sarna, but like it doesn't like translate the same. But yeah, like so I had like an experience like just rescuing a little puppy and then giving her an adoption. But then I felt so bad because I just couldn't keep her, so I basically just had to give it away to whoever is gonna take her. And I remember I had a lot of guilt about that because like afterwards it like I don't know how she is, like if this person is actually taking care of her or not. Anyways, but I think like back then, all like my observations about street dogs was very emotionally biased. So I was feeling very sad for them. I was feeling like, oh, we need to like rescue them all and, like save them and adopt them. And then when I came here to Canada and then I started volunteering at my local animal shelter, I started to see like this other side because we had so many import dogs in the shelter who like are rescued from Mexico or from Iran or from Russia. And they struggled so much that they ended up at the shelter. So then that kind of like started to like question myself of like, because when we're in Mexico and we're like, oh yeah, like we want to save the dogs and we want to, like send them overseas. And in our head sounds perfect. Like, oh my God, like they're going to be in like a first world country. They're going to be taken care of. They're going to have, like vets and care. But then I was just like, like now I'm seeing this other side of how these dogs are just ending up at a shelter and like they're not able to be adopted because they have a lot of issues adjusting to this new life. So then I saw your content when you were in Thailand, and then that really inspired me for like this last time that I went to Mexico to really take another look to dogs and street dogs and like free roaming dogs, just like on their own, like just seeing them, how they navigate the world. And I was like so like I was so amazed at like their emotional intelligence, at how they know their places, they know their things, how stable they are. Like they can just chill like in the middle of the road like they don't care about anything. So it was just like, okay, like now I'm seeing them not from that emotional standpoint where I'm feeling sorry for them, and then that lens filters everything as cruel and sad and like what a horrible life they're living, but actually appreciating that other side of, well, they're free and they have full agency and they have like, they're like scratching because like I'm sure they have like fleas and like all these things, but they choose when to engage, they choose when to go away, they're scavenging, they are like problem solving in real life. So then it's like gave me that appreciation of like, I feel like sometimes we like miss that part because we're feeling so much emotion. And then I remember one reel that you posted about how I think it was the rescue that you were working with in Thailand, that they would do basically like take the dog from the streets, get them better, and then put them back in where they found it. So like that was, at least for me, a brand new concept that like when I think about rescue and helping dogs, I never thought about that concept. So like I don't know if you can just share a bit more of like that experience, because you said something that like we're not trying to be heroes here, and I like that really hit me because it's like I feel like we go so easily into this, I want to save them all, I want to be a hero, and we do it thinking that we're being very selfless. But I feel like sometimes we are very selfish because we want to give us that gratification, but then we don't think through all the layers, all the nuances of taking dogs away from their environment. So yeah, if you can just share that particular experience with us a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I was the same when I first when I saw the village dogs in Thailand when I was back out there like 2018. I was like, okay, like these dogs are like technically owned, so whatever, like so yes, they would have like fleas and they'd get like ticks from time to time and stuff like that, but it was all like pretty chill. Then when I started working in the shelter in the UK, I kind of like switched straight to, okay, we've got to save like all of these dogs, like like we got to save them all, like because they're all struggling. And then as I got like further into it, I was like, oh, like when I actually went to Romania itself, and then when I went to Thailand, like there's the dogs, like you said, like they just like fluidly go through their days. Like they're just very, very natural. And there's something like really special about just watching dogs be natural dogs in these environments. It's like it's so, so cool. Like their communication, how they navigate the world with like, no one telling them what to do, just like picking and choosing what they want to do each day, navigating like human stuff like traffic and things like that. And yeah, like it's so, so cool watching that. And yeah, I absolutely love the process that a lot of places are doing now. I think it varies from country to country, and I can talk about a bit of that in a minute. But like, especially in Thailand, on Koh Lanta, where it's a very small island, so very, very small island, and because the rescue has been there for 20 years, they've like eradicated like rabies and all that kind of stuff. So like through the vaccination programs, through sterilization programs, the population is very much like under control, and the locals have all been had like received loads of education. They know that they can take their dogs to the center for free to be sterilized. Like it's a very kind of like working with the community aspect, and because of that, people feel safer around dogs. They feel safer around dogs and they know that there's support for dogs there. They also start to see like the wonders of living with free roaming dogs as well. So they get to experience that. And then, a lot of people become feeders. So there's lots of people there will just like feed the dogs, go out on their bikes, have a selection of dogs that they will go feed each day. Um, Everyone knows what dogs belong to what area of the island. And it's just like really nice. It's just a lovely community of just dogs and people all together. And I think that's super, super special. And that's something that definitely Atlanta Animal Welfare and lots of other places now as well, is that people don't want to disrupt that nice balanced ecosystem and community that they have. It's being like, okay, this dog has been hit by a car. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll bring them in, where we'll treat them and then we will kind of like put them back where they are. Basically what they do first is like observe the area and just like check in with the locals there to be like, is there someone who's feeding this dog? Is this dog like well known around here? Like how do they get along with the other dogs? It's making sure it's safe for them to go back. And if it's safe for them to go back, then there's no reason to take them from the street because they just thrive
Mhm.
there. Like it's their natural niche.
Mhm.
They've been molded by natural selection to survive in this niche. Generations to generations has made them what they are. And it's just the best way forward for them. And it's really hard, I think, for like our minds to wrap around because we're very much used to selectively bred dogs. And growing up, I thought like everyone around the world had like spaniels and golden retrievers and collies. I thought that that was what dogs were. But then like I realized that 80% of the world's population of dogs are all just like these natural dogs, just like free roaming, all adapted to different niches depending on their environments, like like fur and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, no, like these are more natural dogs, kind of like very much closer to um how dogs and humans have always lived. Where you find humans, you'll find dogs. Dogs opportunistic scavengers eating our scraps, and that's just how it's been for like thousands of years. Breeds and working dogs and stuff like that, like a relatively new thing if you think about the timeline
Mhm.
of dogs and humans. So the more I learned about that, I was just like, wow, yeah. Um, and especially through like my work with behavior clients and stuff like that, and I'm like, and in rescue, there were some dogs that maybe have been brought over by, like you said, people who think they're being selfless, but it's all good done with good intentions. But
Mhm.
some of these dogs just thrived where they were, and it may not look like the picture of health and the
Mhm.
idealistic idea of like what dogs should be like, because there's no like regular veterinary care. They don't have dog beds, they don't have like toys and all this kind of stuff. But they're happy. Like, even if they've got a
Mhm.
few war wounds and yeah, missing some fur and they've got some fleas, like these dogs are very, very happy. And it's definitely something now that I'm a big like advocate for. If the dogs cannot be saved, I believe that every dog has a right to a life and like should be saved. So like the dogs who are going to struggle by going back on the street, maybe they've been attacked by a group of other dogs. Maybe they don't have anyone who can look after them. Maybe they had a severe injury and now maybe they're disabled now and they've just got a poor chance of survival outside. Then absolutely, I think because dogs are domesticated species, like we can find them a relevant home if possible. But not every dog has to have that as this kind of like a blanket. So it's not like, oh, we see a street
Mhm.
dog, oh, let's take that dog and find them a
Mhm.
home and kind of tell them when they can walk and when they can eat and when they can sleep and all that kind of stuff. Like that's going to be detrimental to them overall. And I've seen the effects of that, the adverse effects of dogs who are just not suited for it. It's like when you go to the zoo and you see lions pacing in their enclosure or elephants like bobbing their heads up and down. It's exactly the same for these kind of natural dogs being brought into, say, like a domestic setting.
And for our listeners, because we've been throwing some of these terms around, for you, how do you classify or categorize like street dogs, village dogs, free roaming dogs? What do those terms mean to you, just so our listeners understand?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, so free roaming dogs, village dogs, street dogs, they're just dogs that don't really have a permanent home. They're not dogs that are kept inside. They can free roam and do what they want pretty much all day, every day. Some of them may have like like again, the term like loosely owned. Some of them might have a collar or a piece of string just to indicate that they are just that someone feeds them. Usually it's not really to say that, oh, they are owned by someone, but they generally, it's like a sign to other people, like this dog doesn't need to be removed because they are taken care of, basically, is why people put that on. But yeah, they're the dogs that you will see when you go to various different countries. They all just kind of like hang around at the side of the road, sometimes sitting in the road, like you said, sitting outside shops, restaurants. They're usually all very much like the same kind of type. Usually be like a medium size, maybe like 20 kilos, something like that. Depending on where you are, they'll have like similar colors. Like, a lot of them tend to be quite like natural browns. Some of them have different coats as well, just depending on kind of like the environment that they're in and the dogs that are mixed there. But yeah, they're just like those dogs that just free roam around. You see them on holiday. They walk up and down the beach. They walk up and down outside the shops. And they're usually the chill dogs, right? They're the dogs that you see that are just kind of chilling. They're the dogs that when you're on holiday and they come up and next to you on the beach and you think, oh, this dog wants me to save them. And it's like, nah, they just know how to. They just know like your easy pickings to give them food and for the day, and then they'll go off and find the next person tomorrow. Like,
yeah, they're like, I know what works here.
yeah, 100%. And also, I think like there's another funny thing about street dogs and free roaming dogs is if you see a really distinctively like looking dog that you're like, what the hell? Like, who has put this dog together? That's typically a street dog because it usually means that somebody selectively bred dog has stuck out somewhere and mated with a dog somewhere. Like, and they've just got this like shepherd head and body, and then like the legs of like a chihuahua. Like,
doesn't match. You're like, that doesn't work.
Yeah, they look funky and they got like floppy ears and stuff. Like, yeah, that's a street dog.
I know, and I feel like every country has like their particular, because like in here at least, because Mexico is like so close, we get a lot of like rescues from Mexico, and then like they have like a specific that I see them and it's like my pal, because I always like joke with my clients that I am also a Mexican rescue. So she's like, oh, I get along with these guys. Like, I understand that. But yeah, no, like, and I think like what you were saying, that is something, and funny enough, like really how Curious Nude started, like my whole idea for like the walks that I do, which is how I started into like my business. It was thanks to a Iranian rescue. So I started a dog training program, so I needed dogs to practice with. So I started to just reach out to my community of like, hey, do you let me practice with your dog? And then a lot of people like just offered their dogs to me, which was amazing. And then I started working with this doggy, and she was like recently rescued from Iran. And then in the beginning, she was still in the process of adjusting to life. So in the beginning, she was kind of like pretty shut down. She was pretty chill. Like I would walk her and she was more like, like in that flight state. But very quickly she started adapting, and like her prey drive was crazy. And for me to not allow her to chase a squirrel was just like the worst thing that I could do to her. And then she started to escalate, like her reactivity started to get like very, very, very high. And back then I was very new into like dog training and how to do, and I was supposed to be practicing with green dogs. And then I chose these dogs who were like not green at all. But what I got from her, it was just like the way that she was behaving, even inside, because she was living in an apartment. So it was like a very small space with lots of sounds everywhere. She was super sound sensitive. So she was pretty shut down inside her home. And then outside, like she couldn't have any freedom. She had to be on a leash. She hated the leash. She hated a harness. She hated anything on her body. And then like she wanted to just like, I think like she just didn't understood the concept of like, I'm seeing a squirrel and I want to chase the squirrel. And then you're not letting me, like, what the hell? So I think like that is the first dog that made me think of like, man, I'm pretty sure that this dog was living leading her life in Iran, like just like, like going around, chasing her own food, like
Yep.
hunting, doing her things. And then someone was just like, oh, let me rescue you and ship you to Canada. And I always think back of that, like that dog really like made a mark on my experience and like my approach to working with dogs because of that, because I was like, man, like, are we really like, was she like, if we asked her, was this really a rescuing situation, or was she just like moved, like had no choice in that matter, and then she's just living a life that she just doesn't understand? The weather is completely different, the environment is completely different. So I'm just curious to know, like, because I know that you work particularly with these types of dogs. So
Yeah.
what are the challenges that you are finding with your clients when they rescue overseas? Because I feel like there's two sides of it. One is like the expectation that people are like, oh, I'm going to adopt a dog, and then it's going to be, like, it's going to just be my buddy, and it's just going to be, we're going to be friendsies, and she's going to be happy that I rescue her. So like, what are the challenges that you're finding both with the humans and kind of like that adjustment of expectations, and also with the dogs? Like, what do these overseas dogs struggle the most with? Because I'm just curious to see if that's the same thing that I was looking at here.
Yeah, I think it will be, to be honest. I'd say, yeah, with the human side of it, again, it's because we're very much used to selectively bred dogs, and the dogs that we're used to in rescue in our like native countries, we're just kind of like, we're used to that. We're used to dogs that have been brought up knowing what a kettle is and the microwave dings and the washing machine and the dishwasher. Like, we take all those things for granted. Like, and then some of these dogs that come over have never seen like a TV before, or have ever seen their reflection. Like, so many dogs that like see like kitchen stools and they can like see themselves in it, and they just get like so freaked out because they're just like, what the hell is this? I've dogs, like a lot of street dogs as well, like, as they've got like, full like neophobia, where they're just like, anything that's novel and out of place, so it's like, yeah, I don't trust that, because that's something I'm suspicious of, and survival mode kicks in, and they're like, I'm just going to tell that thing to back off. Like, I've seen like, balloons stuck in trees, and I've had dogs just be like, what is going on, like, just freaking out. Like garden statues, and and also just like things that appear that weren't there before, and they're like, what is going on? So like, it's all these little things you just don't think about, you just take for granted, and then actually you think about, oh yeah, has, like, especially from like Thailand, for example, where there's no carpet. Dogs being adopted out from like Thailand to the UK, and then they take one step outside the house, and like, I've never felt carpet before, and they're like, they're just stuck, they're frozen, they can't move. And people might be like, oh yeah, what's going on? Like, dogs can just walk everywhere. Like, why does the texture matter? Like, what's wrong with my dog? And it's like, well, it's the texture they've never felt before. It's unknown. So yeah, so like the human side, the expectations is like, I think as well, like a lot of the rescues that I work with are very good at preparing people, and I myself, like when I used to do adoptions, it pretty much sounded like I wanted to put people off the idea of adopting one of the dogs, just because I wanted to be so honest and just upfront that it's going to be difficult, because I'd rather put expectations on the floor, and then every small win be like, wow, that's amazing, rather than set expectations up here and then the dog's not going to achieve them, and then people just get disheartened and end up like, with the worst way, kind of like resenting their dogs. So like, people, I think like it's going to be like this Disney moment, and that's what I'd always say to people, is like, there isn't going to be a Disney moment when you first come to the kennels to meet one of these dogs. Like, they are not going to want to go near you. They're probably going to react to you. They're going to be scared of you. Like, they're going to be, there's not going to be a Disney moment where they just jump into your arms. Like, that's not going to happen. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect, because a lot of the dogs that come over from various different countries, people aren't meeting them first. So they're seeing photos and videos of these dogs with their caretakers, who they're very used to, with other dogs who they've been brought up with, and in a setting that they do know. Even if they're in a shelter, they still know it very well. So they're going to be a lot more animated, a lot more fluid, having cuddles with their caretakers, playing with their caretakers, all this kind of stuff. And then there's a bit of a disconnect, because then people hear from the rescue charity saying like, this dog's going to be difficult. They're going to take this long before they start to come out of their shell. They might be hid under the table for the next 2 months. And then people are like, yeah, no, I hear all that. But, I've seen the videos. This dog looks fine. And then when they do arrive, then they're like, oh, well, yeah, it actually is going to be that difficult. And then they can almost like do a U-turn and be like, what have I done? This isn't what I envisioned. Even though you told me, I just couldn't connect the dots. So the human side of it is something that, like, for me, I always just try and drive expectations really low. I love these dogs. I think they're absolutely fantastic, but I always make people aware that there are sacrifices that you have to make in your life, potentially for the next 10, 15 years, where you're not going to be able to do the things that you thought you were going to be able to do with a dog, and not compared to other people's journeys, etc. Because like that ties nicely onto like, the most common issues that we run into is usually that restraint. So when that lead is on, either for like frustration reactivity, fear reactivity, either from not being able to get access to something that they've always been able to get access to, not being familiar with being restrained or equipment, and then also not being able to escape because they've got that equipment on. So they're unable to use those natural flight cues and those, like, there's really nice interactions on videos we see of, dogs interacting on the streets and stuff like that. They can't do that anymore. Like, they're faced unnatural environment, unnatural setup. So they're going to be more likely to explode because they feel that their life is in danger and they feel trapped, and that's going to make their reactivity a lot more intense. So, on lead reactivity, or either frustration or fear, definitely some of the most common ones that I see. Visitor directed aggression, because once they do feel safe in a place, like they find it as like their heaven. When they do kind of adjust to the home comforts and stuff like that, and they're like, wow, like, I love these people. I'm incredibly bonded to them. Now anybody else who comes in, like, you're an unsafe thing coming into my highly safe place, and I have to respond in kind, because I do not want to feel unsafe in this place that has been my safe haven. So visitor directed aggression and reactivity. People, this is like, dogs find it hard to trust people outside of their, like, maybe their immediate family that they've been adopted by. I've spoken to many people that haven't been on holiday for years because they haven't been able to find someone who can grow a bond with their dog. They can't bring anybody else in. I don't really see separation anxiety too much. I do have some clients. So I'm not a separation anxiety specialist, so I kind of pass it off on to recommended people, but I haven't really seen too much separation anxiety in my time. I think because the dogs can be quite independent, and if they spent quite a lot of time in shelter, it's almost like they've adapted to being alone for certain periods of time. So that works quite well in their favor. Resource guarding, because if they haven't had an abundance of resources before, or they've been in a shelter environment with groups of dogs, they've maybe had to fight for resources for a long time, so they can be quite resource guardy. And just general on-lead reactivity, frustration, barrier frustration, not being very trusting of people, and of course, like, that neophobia, that fear of anything novel, the reluctance to want to try new things, just because it's like, yep, survival mode's on. Why would I put myself at risk? Like, what's the gain from this? There isn't any. In the dog's eyes, they're always going to take that path of safety. They're not going to put themselves at risk and try the, like, new things. So that's another thing that I think people struggle with, when it comes, which I wouldn't necessarily say is, like, always an issue with street dogs, but their independence, and if they don't want to do something, they ain't going to do it. Like, so people kind of sometimes hit like a brick wall when they want to do, like, traditional style training. Maybe they'll go online and they'll be like, how do I teach my dog to loosely walk or something like that? And they'll try it with their street dog, and their street dog's like, I am not doing that. Like, I don't care about the food you've got. I don't care about whatever, because that's just something that doesn't sit right with me, and I'm not going to do it. So you could go away.
It's funny because, like, everything that you're saying, I know this is an episode about street dogs, rescue dogs, and all that, but everything you're saying is so relative to, like, my experience with my bred dog that I got from a breeder. And I'm like, even if you're not into rescue dogs, or, like, this is not a topic that you wanted to get into, if you're just getting a dog in general, getting this information is so helpful, and understanding all that stuff about, like, expectation, and knowing that this is a commitment for years that you have to be able to, live up to, because dogs, despite where they came from, they could have all sorts of predisposed, emotions and feelings, and just, like, there's no way you can predict what kind of dog you're going to get, whether it's from a breeder, whether it's from a rescue, whether you picked up a stray off the street. Like, they can all have these sorts of types of behaviors. And it's crazy to me that, like, everything that you're saying, I'm like, yep, Darwin's got that. Yep, Darwin's got that. Yep, she's got that. And I'm like, I just love that, like, despite our very vast experiences and like what you've worked with. And I'm like, I'm not a rescue specialist. I don't really deal with a lot of rescues. Like I walk rescues and stuff like that, but it's not really something that I'm specialized in. I can relate to everything that you're saying, despite having very different experiences. So I just thought that was like a really, and I'm sure you've worked with dogs who have like come from breeders, and maybe you see a lot of similarities as well. So I just thought that was really interesting.
That's so true, because actually, like, just talking about George, George, just like came from a farm, like, just like it was just like probably like an accidental litter, and he doesn't wear like a harness, he like doesn't wear a collar, like that's pretty bad, I know. But like he just jumps in the car and just kind of like just raw dogs it, he just goes like up on the moors, like where we are, like around everything, but he's completely averse to like equipment and stuff but like a street dog would be, like, he just does not get along with it. Never really has, and we've kind of adapted to suit him, like, and it's just kind of like where life goes. He's also not entirely trusting of strangers. Like, he's really food motivated. If a stranger tries to give him a treat, he'll turn his nose up at it, like he's not taking it. Like, and yeah, he, like, any, like a lot of dogs, this isn't just like a street dog thing, but he's incredibly guardy of the house. Like, so yeah, like there's those traits there that you'd see like in say mostly in a foreign rescue, but yeah, George has those as well. So yeah, it's like you said, it's kind of like a genetic lottery. Like, you just don't know. Like, there's lots of things that are predisposed there before we even get them, before the nurture aspect comes in. There is a that nature aspect as well.
And I feel like there's also, because as you guys were talking, like it just came to me yesterday, I had this session and we were talking, and this is a, like a dog, it's like a good breeder, and then they just got him, and like from 8 weeks old. And what my client was saying is just that, we used to have a rescue dog, and it was like a lot of issues with this rescue dog. So then we were like, okay, this time we want to do, like puppy from the beginning. We're going to have, like a good like breeder, and then we're going to, do all the right things. And she was kind of like just telling me that, like, we did all the right things, we socialized, we did this thing, but we ended up in like having a reactive dog anyways. Yeah. So I was just like, I mean, like, honestly, yeah, like, it's like, I cannot come in and just tell you like, yeah, like if you do this and that, then it's going to be guaranteed this point. So I feel like rescue dogs definitely put us more up to kind of like that mirror, because they can have a lot more of these traits, but that doesn't mean that you're perfectly bred dog is not going to come out and have like resource guarding or anything like that, because at the end of the day, we cannot predict exactly how they're going to take in the world. So I feel like it's a important thing to just remember, that we really cannot control everything when it comes to dogs, no matter where we're getting them or at what age. Because I have, I have clients who are dealing with the same type of like reactivity, and one is a rescue and one is a bred dog. So yeah, no, I think like it's definitely just a thing of like, I think like the rescue dogs puts us more into that challenge, because they may have new quirks, just like you mentioned, like things that are so normal that your dog will get used to the sound of the laundry machine or whatever. And then maybe this rescue dog is going to show you that it's something so normal, it's a big issue. And you actually like reminded me of Bolt. Right now I'm working with one dog, and we cannot get him to go up a set of stairs in his building. And it's just like we're trying to figure out, and my feeling is that it's the texture, because it's like carpet and wooden stairs. So he can go out on like concrete stairs if they're open, but if they're tight, and then there's the carpet thing. So I was explaining to the mom, like, I feel like it's the sensation, because it's not as stable, and maybe that is an issue, but it's just like, oh my God, like, do we have to think about all these tiny things of like the texture and these things? And it's like, yeah, like all of those things are very new. So I think there's definitely that aspect of all the things you wouldn't expect be an issue. And then the dog is like, it's an issue now, Mom.
Yeah, so true, so true. And actually, just like coming off the back of that as well, like I have worked with many street dogs that have come into like the rescue and I've adopted out, who have been absolutely bomb-proof. Like, have just been like, some of the dogs have been through like so much like trauma, even the transport across the world, may have found themselves in like really, really bad situations, and have just been the most loving, easygoing dogs, like so resilient. They're just like, I prepare, and sometimes like, I prepare people for like the worst. And then this dog just strolls into their home, like gaslighting me. And it's just like, I'm like, can't take them for a walk for at least a week, be really hands off, like play hard to get. And this dog's like, I don't care about all that. I was like, fetch me my lead. Like, let's go out. Like, let's go meet this person and that person. And I love children and I love other dogs. And I'm like, so we do get them kind of across, regardless of where they come from. So we've talked about some of the like sometimes what can be like the downsides and the struggles that we might have. But yeah, there is that chance where the dogs are actually just like incredibly bomb-proof unicorn dogs and end up being like stooge dogs for like different types of work and stuff like that. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
crazy.
But I love what you said about like how you really put expectations on the ground because
Yeah,
like by doing that and then the dog just strolls in and they're like, I don't know, everything's super
yeah,
easy, it's no problem,
yeah,
then it's like
yeah,
amazing for the owners. They're like, this is the
yeah,
best thing ever. Whereas if you had done it in reverse, they'd be like, what the frick, Toby? Like,
yeah,
you told me that
yeah.
this
You
dog was gonna
promise.
be
For sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah, no, definitely not. I'd just be like, yeah, yeah.
so like for people who want to get into rescue and like working with rescues, what are some ways or tips maybe that you could share that would really help bridge that gap between the owner and them getting the dog so that there is an easier transition for them to be integrated into their life rather than having this really gap and like this huge gap in expectation and how to go about welcoming that dog into their home?
Yeah, I think this a very thorough research into just like the setting up of the home, even just like making sure like thinking about like all the little things that you might not think about. So thinking before your dog even arrives, before you even thinking about adopting a dog, thinking about like even your home layout. Like, do I have a way of getting my dog out to go to the bathroom without having to put too much like pressure on them, for example? Like, can I set up my
Mhm.
house through using different barrier systems or like doors closed or whatever? So that my dog has an easier time being able to go out to the garden or, how to make the toilet walk if they're like in an apartment as like non-stressful as possible. Like just trying to think like, hypothetically trying to think like how can I make this as stress-free as possible and just thoroughly research all like the things that we're talking about. Like, what happens if my dog is like this? What is a rough time frame? And actually like there is actually no rough time frame because every dog is different. But you know, looking into other people who have like adopted dogs from either like either they're from rescues to their own country or rescues from abroad, looking at the support pages, seeing what other people are going through, like get that experience, live through other people before you do it yourself. Now, there is something else that you could do as well. Instead of like just committing straight into, I'm going to adopt a dog, say from Romania, and that's what I'm just going to get one that comes off the bus, and I'm just going to meet them on the motorway, and that's that. Which I don't recommend, by the way. But like, look into if you want like if you're focused on a street dog and you really want to do something for a street dog, look into charities that are already like in the country that have already brought dogs over. Maybe they're in foster homes, maybe they're in kennels, and look into just like doing fostering yourself or giving that dog like a time to like meet and greet away from the home and take the pressure off yourself. I think that's something as well that helps kind of bridge the gap and get rid of those expectations, is where there's like no pressure to actually take the dog on full time, just kind of like adventure and get a feel for what it would be like. So, because when you don't have that added
Mhm.
pressure, you don't feel like, oh, if I don't do this, like I have to give the dog back or whatever, because that can just make you in this really, really tough position and in a really tough place where you're looking at everything through this highly emotional lens, where everything that the dog does is going to be like like intensified by like 100 because you're thinking, this is make or break. Like this dog, if I can't keep this dog, where does this dog go and stuff like that. So there's loads of other outward kind of influences that are affecting your decisions and things like that. So taking the pressure off, trying to be as laid back and as flexible as possible, I think is like one of the best things that you can be. Like you've got to be able to be adaptable. You've got to be able to be patient, and you've just got to be well resilient, definitely. But you've just got to be easygoing, go with the flow. You need to say to yourself, "Am I someone that if for whatever reason my dog can't do XYZ, am I going to be able to cancel those plans that I maybe had a
Mhm.
few months from now that maybe I thought would be fine, but actually they're not going to be fine now? Like, am I flexible enough to not be upset by that and not blame my dog for that? Like, am I going to be able to
Mhm.
change these things depending on how my dog's feeling? And that's just going to help you kind of like it's going to help you get rid of that kind of the whole expectations of what your dog should be and what life should be like with your dog. But definitely get into practice in first. Like there's plenty of rescues around. Like we have big ones in the UK, but there's loads of small like independent rescues that have dogs from overseas or there's dogs from not from overseas. They're just looking for people to come and like, spend some time with them, and like, so
Mm-hmm.
you could get a real feel that is this the way I want to go? Because there's no press, there's no judgment if it's not for you because it can be super, super
Mm-hmm.
difficult. Like, and there are plenty of people who they said to me, I'm looking for a street dog. I'd be like, don't get a street dog. Just because not to say like, I'm not taking away anything from you as a character or anything like that, but it may not just be the right time in your life right now. And there's no shame in that. It's better to make it like set everybody up for success, yourself and the dog. So yeah, that's how I'd say, like, bridge the gap, find some experience without actually having to commit to, again, meeting the dog on the motorway, whether it's plonked in your arms and it's like off you go. Like, just, find a way that you can kind of like break that process down, and that's really going to help.
Mm. Yeah, and that something that Olivia and I always talk about is how, like when it comes to like our approach, because I think like the three of us, we have like a very I mean, I often don't say like force free because of all the connotation that comes with that. But like, I mean, like at the end of the day, like I think like the way I describe it is like the fear free approach
Yeah.
of like really understanding, very holistic, very
Yep.
kind of like going deep rather than just getting the behavior and like make him be good, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like what we always say is that sometimes we see that, especially like in our side of like the way that we train, we can have that kind of like no choice agency type of thing with the dog, but then with the human, we are kind of like more tough and like you have to do this. And I love that the approach that you say is really offering that element of choice to the
Yep.
human as well. So then if they have the ability that they don't feel trapped in their decision, so then that this human is going to have more bandwidth and it's
Yep.
going to see all the challenges in a more like, okay, I've got this, and if not, I have a way out. So I am choosing to stay in the game and choosing to be working in the process with my dog rather than feeling trapped, because I see
Yep.
that a lot. Like right now I have a couple of clients who are in that process where like we're working on, and that is something that I have to like remind myself, because I don't have a dog of my own. So like for me it's like I come into a session with the dog and it's just like my whole focus is like, let's work on this. I just see you once a week, so then it's like if you explode here and there, it's just like amazing. I can take that very positively. And then
Yeah.
when I'm talking with the human and we're working together, then they're like, yeah, but like I work 8 hours and then I come home and I have to continue working on that. And then it's just like very frustrating. So that is something that I continue to remind myself of, the fact that people get tired of like the amount of work that it is to
Yeah.
help a reactive dog, an explosive dog, a dog who like just kind of like turns and bites the leash and it's just
Yeah.
like having this meltdown. And I can, acknowledge how I don't see that, because I'm just here working with the dog. And for me can be like, I can take it super nice and like, oh, we're going to work on this. But then this human who every single walk looks like this and feels like this, and then they're
Yeah.
just exhausted and they're tired. So just like I always hold a lot of space for them too, of saying like, it's okay for you to feel this way, like don't feel
Yeah.
guilty, because it's a lot of work. And I think like we also need to care about the human and keeping them in the game and make them like feel understood, because I feel like that is something that what people want, just like to be
Yeah.
acknowledged into like how tough it is what they're going through. So I think like that is an important part, and like as Olivia said, like setting those expectations low. But at the same time, there's something you mentioned of like, no matter how much you want to set the expectations low, sometimes people in the moment, because maybe they saw a picture of the dog or a video and they fell in love and they already are like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then it's kind of like they don't listen to the bad things because they're just
Yeah.
like so enamored with the dog. And then it's until they have the dog that is just like, oh shit, like Toby
Yeah.
was right.
Yeah.
This is tough. So I think it always like, as much as we want to prepare someone as much as we can. We cannot control, and that is something that I've been working on. We cannot control what they understand and like how they
Yeah.
listen to what we see, or like maybe in their head it's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be tough for like 2 weeks and then it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, no, I did not say that. Like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? So I feel like
Yeah.
that is the biggest challenge sometimes, of like balancing those things out. But at the end of the day, I'm also in the idea that, like people have to go through the process. And like I keep mentioning this book in every episode, I think, but there's this book that I love that is called The Obstacle is the Way. And I think like I always try to inspire people into that of like, like you have this dog at this point, maybe the rescue, like sometimes like the rescuers are not like, oh, I'm going to take the
Yeah.
dog back or anything like that. So it's like, okay, well, now we have this thing, but like we can see it as an opportunity to learn
Yeah.
and an opportunity to like help this dog ground you. Cause I do feel that there's this power that, tricky dogs have, or like dogs with big feelings have, that they have to pull you, like they have to like kind of like bring you into the present, and you like
Yeah.
you have to go through the process. And there's so much learning that you can gain from actually leaning into that experience and facing your control freakness, and that you are used to like having everything figured out, and turns out this dog is now showing you that you cannot figure this dog out. And that challenge, I feel like a lot of our work as trainers is really being a partner with people in that journey and helping them understand what's going on, and also helping them in their own process, because it's very heavy with the human side of our work, which I think like a lot of people go into training of like, I don't want to work with humans, and it's like it's a lot
Yeah.
of work with
Yeah.
humans here. so
Yeah.
so yeah, like how do you find that, like, and especially working online, like going back to the fact that I am very curious about how you work from far away, because at least for me, I feel like I have to be there and see the dog, but that is just like how I've developed the way that I work. But for
Yeah.
you, how do you achieve that, like that support, and that you inspire a lot of like what I do of like having these constant check-in points? Because
Yeah.
when I saw that that's what you were doing, is like, I really want to do that. I want to be involved in the process,
Yeah.
and I just don't want to be at one session and that's it. It's like I want to work with clients longer term, because I feel like
Yeah.
that is where you really start like pulling things back. So how have you found like that online work and all that process with people?
Yeah, no, definitely. Because the people side, exactly like you said, people are like, "Oh, I want to work with dogs because I don't like people." And you're like, if you want to work, if you want to work like actually like with clients and stuff like that, it is mostly people. It is mostly navigating that. Um, and I love like the support aspect. I think I got that from when I used to work in adoptions, because it was a lot of talking to people, preparing them. Yeah, I knew the dogs like inside and out, so it was a lot of like that kind of like being on it. We do like a first day check-in. We do like a home trial period. So like be in contact with the new adopters kind of like every day for the 4 weeks. We do like check-in calls and stuff. So it was very much like providing loads of support from the get-go. And that's something that we really prided ourselves on when I was doing adoptions in the UK, is that we had a really rock solid adoption process like the whole way through. It was like airtight. Obviously you get ones that like, things don't work and stuff. That's just life, the way it is. But yeah, our support package and how we would like conduct ourselves, we absolutely loved. And I kind of carried that forward. And it's definitely like, when I'm working with clients, like I'm always trying to change mindsets, because like you said, our tricky dogs, our spicy dogs can actually teach us so much. They've taught me so much about like, when we're saying about trying to help dogs, we're trying to talk about like managing their arousal, giving them like appropriate outlets, bringing their regulation up, like helping them recover faster, making them feel safe and comfortable. And it's actually like you could transfer so much of that to the human aspect. Like, how many humans are trigger stacked day in, day out because they're not doing anything to kind of bring themselves
We're
back
like,
down?
yep.
Yeah, exactly. And we're there, like, obviously, like shouting it from the rooftops about how we're like trying to bring our dog's arousal bucket like down, but like we're not actually doing it for ourselves. So, like, like
Yep,
Yeah.
when
totally.
we take a step back and we look at that again, like going back to dogs, we're like, okay, we've got to provide them with their physical enrichment, their mental enrichment, and stuff like that. Like that's why I'm a big advocate for like physical exercise, doing things that you like, having hobbies, having downtime, like all that stuff's a human aspect. So with my clients, I'm always trying to definitely push that onto them. Like I'm always advocating for rest days, not just for the dogs, but for the people as well. And I say that from the get-go. And it's one of my first things actually. If I'm working with a client and they're feeling quite trapped, say they've got they've got their rescue and their world is feeling very, very small and they're feeling very trapped, I'm like, hey, the first thing that we're going to try and do is try and expand your support network, because like I want you to be able to feel like you can go to the cinema or you can go out for a
Mhm.
meal, or you can go to the family barbecue, or you can, and that you feel that your dog can be safely left like with someone, like if it's a family friend, another professional, whoever it may be. Like let's try and expand that support network so that you don't feel so alone, because it's very, very isolating if you've got a dog that you can't really do much with. So I'm always trying to expand like, the support network. And why I love doing the daily check-ins is because when I'm talking to people, I'm saying like, hey, I'm here for you for like whatever. Like, if something comes to mind, if something pops up with your dog, whatever it may be, outside of even what we're predominantly working on, I want you to send it over to me. Like, I want you to bounce things off me. If you're feeling like you may need to rehome your dog, tell me straight away. Get out on the table. Don't let it bubble up and be like a taboo subject that you can't talk about. Like, it's a safe space. Get it out. It will make you feel so much better because you can talk to someone who's dealt with. I've dealt with so many dogs that have been out to a home for like a few days and come back again, right? It's for me, it can feel like very normal. For someone else, it could be like the end of their world. But for me, I'd see it so much, it'd be like desensitized to it. So I can help kind of like bring them down and understand that. And even with my training, like people come to me and say like their original mindset is I dread going outside for my walks because I might see like another dog or I might see like another person or a trigger that my dog might have. And I'm like, okay, well, what we're going to do in our process of like working together is I'm going to try and flip your mindset so that instead of you being like, I'm dreading this walk because of what I might see, what if we looked at it from a new light when it's actually like, these are all opportunities that I can work with my dog as a team to like get through this situation so that in
Mm-hmm.
the future they're able to handle it and I can support them with it. So, and then I love that transformation that people end up having where they're like, oh, I didn't see any dogs today. Damn it. Like, now I'm like, yes, like that's exactly the outcome that I want. Don't want you to feel scared of going outside. I want you to feel confident, equipped. And I think we get that one, both like supporting the humans, but also like this continuously educating them and telling them like what their dog is feeling. And that's why I love doing my
Mm-hmm.
online work because even though I'm not there in person, my clients send me so many videos and I go through every single video and I break it down and I tell them what their dog is feeling in those particular moments, what it means. And also I help them like, when they might see a reaction and be like, this is the end of the world. Like my dog is kicked off. I got a dangerous dog. My dog's difficult. And then like talking to a professional who sees reactivity like all the time and has seen like really, really big reactions and like dangerous reactions, I can look at theirs and I can be like, actually, like, yes, it looks really bad for that like 2 seconds that it happened, but look at what happened afterwards. Your dog just kind of continued walking, checked back in with you, and it was all good. So it helps like
Mm-hmm.
draw people's attention to like those positives because like our human brain just through evolution is just programmed to focus on the negative things from a survival point of view. So trying to rewire the brain to be like, actually, think about all those positive things that
Mm-hmm.
happened. And I don't know if you guys have read the book, like Plenty and Life is Free. Have you read that book?
No, but I'm gonna
Okay,
add it to my list.
yeah, have a read. And there's an exercise in there that I really love because the book is all about like how your dog does like so many good things and like in a day that we just don't really focus on. And Plenty in Life is Free, like there's a nice task in there which I set for my clients. It's like I want you to cut up your dog's favorite food into like 50 pieces. And when you go out on a walk, I want you to actually look for 50 desirable behaviors that you can reinforce. And I want all those treats to be gone by the time you get home. Because like actually when you look at it, your dog's doing so many things that you would
Mm-hmm.
actually really love them to do more often, but you're just so busy focusing on my dog's pulling, my dog's lunging, my
Mm-hmm.
dog's fixated, my dog's hiding behind a tree, whatever it may be. And it's actually like all the times that they're sniffing, or the times that they're kind of like following your direction, or they're looking at you, or they look at another dog, or a bird, or a squirrel, or whatever it may be. Um, so that's something that I really love to do as well. So yeah, a lot of the online work is definitely like very human focused. Um, because I've been in stressful and like when I worked in rescue, like that was we didn't have dogs in our home like at the time when me and Lauren were working in rescue. So it was easy to switch off. Like I'd go in and be like, okay, after my 9 hours are done, like I just come home and I can switch off. Um, but that kind of stacking up on itself, like when you're dealing with like 35 reactive dogs day in day out in a environment stressful, it really wears you down. So it's kind of like given me a very kind of like first-hand experience and perspective that taking care of yourself you need to do, or you will burn out. So I definitely emphasize that quite a bit with my clients now.
I actually, I'm gonna admit that I did steal that from your reel when I saw it about cutting the treats up into like 50 pieces. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
dang, that's a good way to look at things. Cause like people get so bogged down about like, oh, I can't do this. Now we can't go here. And like my dog's not doing this, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, let's flip the script. How about we
Yeah.
like talk about all the amazing things that your dog has? And I remember you posting that reel about it. I was like, that was a good one, Toby. I'm gonna take
Good,
that
good.
one. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean like with all the work that you do, I can imagine it is pretty draining just from a trainer human perspective. Like being in rescue work, dealing with all these emotions from humans, from dogs is not, it's not an easy thing all the time. And when you're doing it day in, day out, you have your own business. I can imagine it being pretty draining just from your end. So as a human, Toby, what do you do to stay regulated? Because like as from like trainer to trainer, like this is just, it's not an easy job. It's very rewarding in so many respects. But like, what do you do to stay regulated, especially being on Instagram? Like your Instagram is kind of blowing up right now, and you've gotten a bigger following. And I can imagine how many freaking keyboard warriors are coming down your throat. And I'm like dealing with all that plus managing your own business. I'm like, I just want to know, what is your grounding? Like, how do you stay grounded and not get caught up in all the crazy and high emotions and everything?
That is a great question, and it's taken me a long time to refine it, because like when I was first on Instagram, I would definitely do a lot more kind of like rage baiting. I think I did like when I first started, and I realized like how much I was kind of like draining myself because it just wasn't like it was a good way of kind of like starting out. And I think there's definitely like a good element of being like provocative and like and like, you know, going against the grain and being standout.
Like your recent reel with the balls, I was like, Toby.
Someone's getting spicy.
I know. I was so happy about
Toby's getting spicy.
I felt bad. I was like lying in bed one night, and this was like one of the best ideas, kind of like when you're in the shower, like brushing your teeth, like when you're in bed. And I was like, hook. I was like, let me get that down on my notes right now. Like it's taken me a while to refine it. I used to like post on Instagram, and I'd just be like glued to my phone, being like, you know, what messages are coming through, like what comments are coming through. Thankfully, I've been very fortunate that I've never really had like loads of like hate DMs. A lot of like other professionals in the space and people that I know have received like quite a few. Like my friend James, dog trainer James, like he received like death threats and like homophobic slurs and all sorts for like a reel that he posted of a process of like working through a reactive dog. I mean, he got the last laugh because he put up a recent reel of the same dog, showing like, you know, how his process worked really well, and the dog was really happy. So it was kind of like, you know, big middle finger to those people. But like, you know, I've been fortunate enough to, I've count on by like one hand like how many messages I've maybe had from people that have been like abusive or whatever. Like nothing too bad actually, so I'm really thankful for that. I used to like I probably used to get like more comments and stuff, but actually what happens is now, like especially with the social media side of things, I do a lot of like post and ghost. Like I kind of like just post something and I don't spend loads of time in the comments, which is a shame because I get loads of great comments from people like supporting, and I really want to reply to everybody, but it's just almost like it's like zapping like my time from other things that are important. Just message for everybody who comments on my stuff. I do love you and I do read them and I love them, but like it's hard for me just to go through. But yeah, so I do a lot of post to ghost, post on things, post Instagram. I have the app Opal. If you haven't got Opal, like don't get the paid version because it's super expensive. You got it? Yeah. You got the paid version? Oh God.
No. I have the free one because, but it's so good. Like in the mornings, I have it every now and then. It's just like, take a little break.
Let me take a break. No. Yeah. Definitely get Opal. It just like locks the apps and makes it a little bit more difficult for you to get in. Obviously, if you're persistent enough, you can get in, of course. But you feel a lot worse like whilst you're doing it because you're like, I feel like a failure right now for unlocking my app. So Opal is great. My social media apps are locked to like about 10 a.m. and they lock at like 9 p.m. every night. That goes all the way through. Even my WhatsApp as well. I'm very strict with my boundaries now with clients. I used to just be replying to people left, right, and center. Like client will send me a message. It like, doesn't matter what time it is. Like, oh, well, let me just check this quick. They've got a question. I've refined that. Like, so they have the times on their welcome letter when I'll be at WhatsApp. Apart from that, my WhatsApp notifications are off and I do not open it. If people have an emergency, they can send me an email and then I will go to WhatsApp to check it if it's like an emergency or something. So definitely setting a lot of boundaries for myself in that regard. My calendar is always kind of like it is blocked out. It's not like over the top blocked out where every minute of the day is kind of like accounted for, but keeping just like a nice routine. Morning routine, definitely. I love my morning routine. Wake up, walk, read, coffee, like all that kind of thing. Staying physically active, so always like prioritizing that my gym time stay in. Time with, and just making sure I have time with friends, time with Lauren. Taking time to sit down and like just watch like my favorite shows and just not pick up my phone. It's something that I love doing now, just reading more and stuff like that. and just having like dog free time. Because like when me and Lauren
Mm.
both worked in rescue, um, obviously we'd work together, then we'd come home, we'd have days off together, and it would just like talking about like rescue stuff and just talking
Dogs.
about dogs. And now I'm like, if someone tries, like, if I go on like nights out or something, like I live in this like a small town, which I like, I grew up here, so like it's quite small, so like everybody knows everybody, and everybody be like, oh, you're a dog trainer, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're like, my dog doesn't. I'm like, do not talk to me, like. I'm like, I'm like, right now, all you have to know is that I just don't like dogs. I'm like, no dog talk. I'm like, if you want to talk about your
Fair.
dog, you can inquire, and you can pay for my time. But like right now,
Yeah.
I'm having a lovely Guinness, and I'm not talking to you about dogs. So yeah, boundaries. Social media is just not a massive. It was. I do try. Like I posted every day for a while, and it was really really difficult, and I felt like it was kind of like making me sick of it. So now I've gone down to maybe posting like 3 or 4 times a week rather than posting all
You
the
were a
time.
beast for like a few
Oh
months that it
man.
was just
Oh
like
man.
every single day. And I was like, Toby, how?
It was difficult. It was really really hard. Like yeah, it's so much. Like it's just like
And
thinking
did
of the
you
stuff.
see it working? Like it kind of like the algorithm picking, was it worth it?
It
Was
definitely
it worth
picked up.
it?
It definitely picked up. Was it worth it? Like I think I had like this kind of maybe like egotistical goal in my head that I just wanted to hit 10K. And since hitting 10K, I will tell you that my life is just like I'm so much more laid back because you just don't see like the little numbers change. It just stays at like 10 point. And I've
Mhm.
been at 10.9 probably like the last like month. Like it's just not going up, but I just don't care. I'm just like I've got the
Mhm.
10 now. Like I'm just kind of like taking a step
You can
back.
chill.
It was definitely a slog. It was worth it just to see like what I could do and that I could do it. But now it's just maybe reframe my kind of like whole social
Mhm.
media thing. You go through waves. I think you go through waves where it's like content, and then you see other people posting and doing really well, and you're like, damn, like I want to go post some stuff. But I think you can just get wrapped in this like vicious cycle of just like chasing either engagement and likes rather than it actually being valuable stuff that people can take
Mhm.
from it. Like, I
Totally.
want people to take some value from it. Even if it's just like entertainment value, like with the hook, with like obviously there was a message in there being like you can use tennis balls for other fun stuff, but even if it was just like the entertainment hook, like that's kind of like
Yeah.
sometimes like the way I want to have fun with it. And actually I've been in a kind of like I used to be like locked in to where I would be like, oh, my social media has to follow this kind of strategy, like value here, validation here, and like promote a service here. And I was like, I just hate that. I like posting things that like sometimes just make me laugh. Like I do post like the like some things where it's like when you see a guy where like with a treat pouch and it's like got the slow motion of me like looking grumpy and then I like shake their hand. There's one of me like dodging a dog that's like trying to like bite my hand, putting a harness on, like the Spider-Man like soundtrack over it, like pretending like I'm Spider-Man. Like I love posting shit like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're
And
not
I
having
think
fun, what's the point?
Yeah,
exactly. You gotta have fun with it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Social media is crazy though. Like I'm very thankful for it. Like it's definitely like but it doesn't like steer you as much traffic as you think. Like I can get
Mhm.
like stuff that maybe would like blow up or maybe like go, I'm not gonna say go viral. Nothing's really gone like viral, but kind of like go up there. And you think, okay, like all the inquiries are gonna come flooding in now. They don't. They don't. like, like, like that
Yeah.
was one thing. Like I hit 10K and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have like people are gonna be like flooding me with inquiries now because they see that little K next to it. Yeah, nothing really changes that much. You still gotta grind.
Yeah.
You gotta grind through like word of mouth and this general kind of
Yes.
like
Totally.
stuff with your clients and things like that and reviews and things. That yeah, definitely the main
Mhm.
priority. Like it's really easy to get sucked into the social media attractiveness of like seeing likes and engagement and views, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
not always relevant.
Laura and I actually talked about that in our business episode where we just talked about all business questions and things. And one of the questions was like, should I post on stories or post to get more clients through the door? And we're like, neither. None of it's going to get you a client.
No, 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 it's
You
not.
got to work some other way.
It's not. It's not. Yeah, I think like the good thing about social media is that people can see you as like I love like it's like I guess slightly going a little bit business, but I like the personal brand aspect of it where people feel like they
Mhm.
know you.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
love like so you guys do it and I see other people do it. I love like when someone let's say like a professional follows me or someone follows me and it's not like it's just like also them, like them
Yeah.
talking to the
Mhm.
camera or like them putting stories of themselves up, like, whatever. Like I love that. I love that connection you get with people, and you get like a real nice kind of like
Mhm.
understanding of their lives and what they're about. I think that's what I love about social media. And I think, yeah, if anybody who's watching this that wants to like post more like, for their business and stuff like that, yes, posting dog stuff is obviously what everybody comes there for, but put yourself on there, like, just be fun with yourself, like put stories up like of your day, and there's like funny things you may have encountered, like what you're doing in the day, like if you're going to the gym or whatever, like, yeah, first, like, I'm going to the gym. Like, it's just like, people want to
Yeah.
see that you're a human being and just not some
Yes.
dog trainer
Mhm.
robot.
Totally.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think like it's also just kind of like, at least for me, the way I see it is that that is the best way, because like I just redid my website, but it's so hard to put in really everything that, like, the way that I see dogs, the way that I want to inspire people. It's hard to put it in like a web page. So like for
Yeah,
me, really, like Instagram, it's my medium of just sharing my approach to like little things of like
yeah,
how I approach a dog doing certain
yeah,
things, or like the things that I want to inspire people, because I want to, like, like just having that moment where it's like you can have more fun on your walks, because I feel like that is at the end of the day my biggest thing of like
yeah,
walks is something that we do all the time. And it's like, if I can hack one routine, it's going to be the walks, because we
yeah,
do it. It's the tricky part. You're in the real world. So it's just like, I am like very niche into like walks and like making that. So I really just want to have that moment where I can inspire someone, or like just show them something fun they can do with their dogs. And I think it's more that part rather than, oh, I'm going to get so many clients, because yeah, just like you
yeah,
said, Instagram really is not like I got like this like real
yeah,
going viral, and it's just like there's nothing that comes after that. Like there's like not
yeah,
many like submissions of like application forms. And I'm curious, I was curious to know about you, because you do online. So like
yeah,
when you post on social media, at least for me and Olivia, we are very local. So like our like little service area is small. So it was like, for me, it's not that much of like we're gonna get clients. But I was curious to know about you, because you are all over the
yeah.
world. So like you have someone like connecting with your reel, but it's interesting to know that you also see that part of like, not really.
Yeah, no, definitely. I say most of mine comes from like word of mouth. Like I'm very lucky like in the Romanian rescue pages and stuff like that, because I've had clients who are quite active in those pages. Like I'll regularly get like someone will post something like in a Romanian rescue support page, and like my name will always be underneath, like from previous clients or people who have seen my Instagram will like share it onto like where it counts. So I say that's where maybe the content does help. It kind of like gets my name out there. And because of the niche that I'm in, it's not a very like overpopulated niche working with street
Mhm.
dogs, to be honest. So um it will like my name will like come underneath these posts, and people will tag me in it and stuff like that, which I really really appreciate that when people do that, that go out their time just to like go and do that is really really nice. So I'd say it's yeah, that kind of like word of mouth from maybe seeing something that I've posted, then they post, or like previous client experience, and passing it through like the support pages instead, for example, is pretty good. But yeah, it's super super interesting how it works. But I mean, you guys have like really good energy on your like social media, like it's like infectious
Thank
energy.
you.
So like it's really really nice, because yeah, Instagram can be a quite a serious place like when it comes to
Mhm.
stuff. And I used to be like very serious into it myself, and I would be like quite like hard hitting with stuff, and I've kind of like taken myself away from that. I'm still very much like an advocate for
Mhm.
dogs, and I will always like be an advocate for dogs, but I've kind of like changed my style of how I do it. Like I had some guy like dropping my DMs, like trying to give me shit, and I just thought, oh, I'm going to turn this into a funny reel where I can just like rip him down. But like not a rip down in like, like a really aggressive way, just like in a fun, sarcastic way. And I think that's just like the best way to do it, because no one ever wins an argument on the internet. Like,
I know. Oh
Honestly.
God.
And I think like that is one thing that I'm saying, because we just had, I don't know if you know her, Bianca from Dogfulness. She's
yeah,
also going around there, and we just had her. And I just have this feeling that, because when I came into the dog training industry, it was very overwhelming to me to like kind of like going through that battles between the sides and the balance and
yeah,
this thing and
yeah,
that thing. So I very early kind of like disengage myself from that, and it's just like I just want to, I have a vision of how I like to work with dogs, how I want to connect with dogs, and I am not. And that's something that Olivia and I share a lot of. Like, we are not here to convince anyone. We're just here to find the people who connect with us. Like, whoever else is doing there, like, I'm not gonna waste my time fighting someone or telling them why they're horrible. And I feel like we do have these new like leader of dog trainers that we are coming up where we are like that. I feel like that's imbibed from you, for example, from Bianca, where we are like, we're not in it. We are not making content like bashing other trainers or attacking others or saying like this study, la la la. It's just like, we're just showing our work. And I feel like at the end of the day, that is what we have to like, just put your work out there, show it, like show you how you work with people, how you bring results to them. And then you don't have to be fighting. You don't have to be citing scientific evidence because you have your work to show. So I feel like I'm feeling very refreshed into like this, as I said, like this new leader of trainers that we're coming out where we're just like, we're not going to engage in that bullshit. We're just going to do our work and have fun.
Exactly. Like I used to be like that and it was exhausting. And then I see other people still doing it who are like, you see like just immediately in the comments is arguing constantly and all the time. And I'm just like, bro, that's gonna be so draining. Like, just put the phone down and go outside. Like,
go walk a dog.
Just go spend time with your dog or something. Just like, just, like whenever things go like too much, like if things get too much for me now, I'm just like, I just put my phone down. Like, I don't live in this virtual world. I live in this real life. And like you said, I love that as well. It's just like, I just love, posting like, this is what my clients are doing with their dogs. This is what I'm doing with my dog. Like, like send off the old, like, odd dig every now and again, but like not a super serious like attack or like, or make it like I have to, like cite again, like citing all the studies and stuff. Like, the studies are very, very important, but you can cite all you want. If someone doesn't agree with you, they're not going to go and read a study and go, you know what? I agree with you now because you cited that study. Like, who in the history of the internet has ever done that? Like, that's never happened.
They're like, Toby, that is actually pretty smart. I will look into that research paper.
They're like, actually, you know what? You're right, dude. Like, no one has ever said that, and nor will they ever say that.
I know, and I think like the efforts are a lot more because I always see that like after like if you were fighting on a post, like you could have been just working with dogs, or you could have shared something of like just how you bring results to people who are going through that, or like how you help someone. So it's just like I feel like that is a way more useful time because I always said like I am a bit of a conspiracy girly, so I'm always like someone is benefiting from all of us fighting. So it's just like I am not gonna engage with that. So I think like I really like that we are bringing us together, and that's a big thing of why we started the podcast, because we wanted to just connect with people who like we just really respect what they're doing, and we want to know more, and we think like everyone has a little piece of knowledge that the other person doesn't have, and the more we can gather those pieces, the more we're gonna like just grow for ourselves as trainers, and then just hopefully help other people. But I really appreciate you coming in with us and sharing all your experiences and just like everything that you're doing with your own training, because we are big fans, so we are very excited. And we do have one last question that we ask all of our guests, which is if you were and maybe you're gonna go through a treaty, but if you were a breed of dog, which dog would you be?
I actually think maybe I'd be like a golden retriever. That's
really?
You do have golden retriever vibes.
I do. I have golden retriever energy. That's what Lauren always says. She always says like golden retriever boyfriend. Have you guys ever seen like have you guys ever watched BoJack Horseman? Like the TV show? Okay. No. If you watch BoJack Horseman, there's a dog called like Mr. Peanut Butter. That's what Lauren compares me to. Like this kind of like this like happy-go-lucky kind of style. Not really like I like think I'm smarter than Mr. Peanut Butter, but if anybody's watching this, like if you know Mr. Peanut Butter, like but definitely a golden retriever. I think golden retriever for sure. Like I would love to be a streetie as well, but I don't think I'm as street smart as a street dog. So like maybe I think they're definitely way more equipped for survival than me, to be honest.
That's so funny.
I love that, but I totally see that. I see that vibe, just the way you show up, like in the videos and all of that. It's like, I could see the golden in there.
for sure.
Well, Toby, thank you so much for joining us for this episode and taking some time out of your day. I know we're like on opposite times. So.
We are. I like it though. I have clients from like I've actually never been to like your guys' side of the world like at all, and I really need to.
You
head
gotta
over
come
there.
here, man. It's beautiful.
I know. Like it's a continent that I just have not been to. I really need to.
Awesome.
I also
well, if you
haven't
ever do
been to
come.
that side. So I'm very excited to
Ah.
like go to. I have a few friends in Ireland, another one
Nice.
in UK and France. Just like people are kind of like pulling me there now, but I've
You
never
should.
left America. So like, and even like from Mexico and Canada and States. That's
one
all I
thing.
know.
Yeah.
So I need to
Just
go.
gone all the way down, up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, like, yeah, if you guys find yourself over here, please let me know.
In your small
Same
hometown.
here.
Yeah. True.
We're gonna be like, "Where's George? We want to see George."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just lurking away in the rural like wilderness. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Chasing
thank you
cows.
so much for joining us and spending your time with us and sharing your knowledge about all these wonderful dogs that you work with. Please continue doing what you're doing because we really appreciate it as trainers. And I'm sure a lot of people who are going through their own struggles, ups and downs with their own dogs are really appreciating your content as well. And yeah, keep up the funny content too, because we're like,
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I will. Do. I
Of
will
course,
do.
if you can share where people can find you in case they haven't yet follow you, like where are the points where they can connect with you?
Of course, yeah. Just search Craze Dog Training on everything. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm not really on TikTok that much, just because TikTok, I just feel like it's a cesspit for anything dog related a lot of the time. But I do have a
feel the
profile on
same.
there. Yeah, I do have a profile on there because sometimes I like to laugh at the comments that I get because they are hilarious. Because there's definitely a different IQ level, like for people on Instagram and TikTok for sure. But anyway, yeah, if you want to have a giggle at some of the comments I get on my TikTok Craze Dog Training, Facebook Craze Dog Training, and Instagram is where I'm most active is on Instagram. Website is Craze Dog Training as well. So like, yeah, it's really easy to find me. It doesn't really change. It doesn't really change.
Craze Dog Training.
Craze Dog Training across the board, you'll find me.
yeah. That's on. No canine in it or anything or
No,
positive.
No, yeah. No canine, no positive, nothing like that. Yeah, no. It's just Craze Dog Training. I'm quite fortunate my last name is Craze. A lot of people ask me my name's fake. But no, that is my last name.
I was gonna ask you. I was like, is that your real last name?
When I've been a guest on people's podcast, they're like, so is your real name actually like Toby Craze, or is that just like, is it just like Toby Craze Dog Training? I'm like, no, my name is Toby Craze, like just Toby Craze, no middle name, just that's it.
Oh, that's a very awesome like last name because it's sticking in your head.
Yeah.
Like, but like I don't know why in the beginning I would always go Crazy Dog Training, but it's just like no,
people,
it's just Craze.
People do that on my analytics. If you look at on my like Wix analytics and stuff, it's like searches like where it's like people have like typed in Crazy Dog Training and my page has like come up somewhere on there, which works quite well.
I mean, it's memorable, so it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. No,
Well,
thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you for spending this day. And I hope you enjoy, guys. Now you know where to follow Toby. And thank you for being in like this season of guests now. We're going to still do 2 more episodes, just me and Olivia. But yeah, this is it for guests in this first season. So yay. And thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.